Hi, Sai here from Music Radar. Today we are checking out the Moog Messenger in its entirety. We also have a special guest, which we'll talk about a bit later.
Yeah, we've got the Novation Base Station 2 on the table as well for various reasons that we'll come to in a bit.
Low-end shenanigans.
Yeah, but the main thing we want to talk about is Messenger. So Messenger is the latest monosynth from Moog. It's their first monosynth they've released in a few years. Obviously, they had Muse last year, which is the big polysynth, which we covered in another video.
Yeah.
Links below. But this is kind of replacing a few things in Moog's line. So they've had over the years, they had like the sub 37 and then the subsequent 25, I think, wasn't it? It's the most recent.
And they've just
their little monosynths, which was discontinued,
Yeah.
I want to say last year or a few months ago or some point.
Yeah, I think it was as recently as a few months ago,
Yeah. But anyway, so basically that's left this monosynth shaped hole in the Moog lineup, which is now being filled with Messenger.
Yeah.
So Messenger, it kind of looks a bit different to some of those old synths. So if you remember those sub and subsequent synths, they kind of looked a little bit like compact versions of the Model D, didn't they? With that kind of sloped look,
sort of thing,
which I know people are like. Yeah, a lot of people really liked.
Yeah,
it
was
did make
synonymous
quite
with
cool.
the brand, wasn't it? For a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and Messenger is noticeably different looking. I think actually when we first saw it, and I think when a lot of people first saw it, they were kind of a bit like, it doesn't look quite as exciting or doesn't look quite cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I must admit, first time I saw it in the flesh at Super Booth, I was like, this is a bit smaller.
Yes,
than I thought it was going to be.
That's right, yeah.
But it's still, you've got this it's nice metal top. It feels rugged and sturdy. And it does actually look cool. It looks like it's a nice looking synth, isn't it? It's sort of black and white.
It's laid out how we expect from the Moog house as
And
well.
and it's kind of hard to there's not that much to dislike about it looks wise. I must admit, the first time that I got a demo of this, or the first time I had a very little play with it,
was it at Super Booth?
It was at Super Booth, and I was I think I remember talking about the time, I was a little bit underwhelmed because I kind of felt like, as you get with monosynths often, it's like you've got that, it's all sort of derived from the old classic Model D mini Moog format, where you've got a few oscillators and things like that, but it's like how much new is there that you could do with that?
Exactly.
How much is there thing? And I think in the background of Super Booth, we kind of felt a bit with Messenger like, it's nice, it's another monosynth thing.
Yeah, not as exciting as some other things.
What I will say is that since we've had this back here in our studio, and I've had some time to spend, actually get to know it better, I like Messenger a lot more than I did, actually. Good. So the more time I've spent on this, the more I actually really rate it as a monosynth in sound and design, and it does some really nice, cool things. Okay. I'm going to take you through a few of those things.
Go for it.
Which we'll do now, and I'm going to use one of my favourite features on it, which is something all synths should have, and not enough synths have. So to start off, I'm going to press this button here, this panel button. So Messenger has a load of nice presets in here, like we can flip through these, various banks, etc., etc. And obviously those, all change different settings. But we've got this panel control here. You can either press that, so pressing the panel control will mean that the sound engine reverts to whatever all the settings are on the front panel, which makes things really easy for sound design. Or you can do what I'm going to do now, which is hold it to initialize it, and we get an initialized patch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a few things here and start building up a bit of a sound. Let's turn everything but the first oscillator down in the mixer. And I can kind of talk you through some of the interesting things here. So these oscillators first. So we've got two oscillators here. As I said, I've got only one of them turned up at the moment. Okay. So what's interesting about these is you've got these continuous wave shape controls here, so you can kind of morph between wave shapes. But over to the far left here, you can see on the front panel, got that kind of sort of mountainy shape there, which signifies that these have got wave folding in it. So that's kind of slightly inherited from Labyrinth, if you remember the semi-modular thing that we played with last year, which also had like a wave folder on it. And wave folding is how that works basically is as it sounds, you've got a kind of wave like that. It folds the peak in on itself, creating these kind of nice harmonics like that. So this is a little bit different from how it worked on Labyrinth. Labyrinth had this kind of separate wave folder you can play with. Here, that's part of this continuous morphing thing. So when we go all the way around to the left, we start folding the wave in on itself. Get that nice kind of slightly metallic-y timbre kind of sound going on, which is really nice. I'm going to start playing something with the ARP, I think, because as ever, I can't play keyboards very well. So it's the easiest way for me to do a little bit of sound design. So let's turn on the hold and press play on here, and I will just get a few notes going. Let's slow that down a little bit. So yeah, very vanilla, very boring sounding at the moment, but let's get a bit of interest into this, playing with things. So as I said, we've got continuous morphing in the wave shape there. And then we've got this filter here. So the filter, let's turn it down to so you can hear me talk for a minute. So the filter, this is the traditional kind of Moog style ladder filter. But what we've got here, which is adapted, is this bass resonance control here. So with these classic ladder filters, if you turn up the resonance without that off like that, you can kind of hear, particularly, actually let's bring some sub-oscillator in to hear this better. So we've got a nice meaty sub-oscillator here, and we can control the wave of the sub-oscillator there.
Does that go, that only goes from...
That doesn't have the wave folder on it, but yeah, but again, we can, it's nice adding a bit of bass. So with these classic ladder filter designs, if you turn up the resonance, as you can hear, you kind of carve out a lot of the bass, which you don't hear. So what we've got here is this bass resonance switch here, which puts that bass back in, which is a nice, really nice little sound design touch there. And so let's start playing with some of the things that we've got here. So let's bring the second oscillator in. And I can tune this differently, obviously. But we can also do some cool things here with modulation. So you can see this mod amount control here. So we can route different kinds of modulation here to start doing some interesting things. So 1 to 2 is kind of classic into oscillator FM. And then we can send the filter envelope here to oscillator 2's frequency, filter envelope to the wave shape of oscillator 2, or the filter envelope to the wave of the sub oscillator. What I'm going to do, let's leave it as 1 and 2 for now, and I'll just have a bit of FM going on. And also, let's use the oscillator sync here, because I've got the tuning kind of messed up a bit here. So if you use oscillator sync and some FM, bring in some nice little tones here. Let's turn that sub oscillator down so you can hear it. I can play with the wave shape and the tuning to bring our filter envelope in to get a bit of interest from this ladder filter. And play around with the amp envelope. So again, still kind of boring, but we've got some nice little kind of tones coming in here. But what I like about this is that you've got some nice modulation options, and we can kind of use these to get a bit of interesting sort of rhythmic stuff going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use LFO1 here, and again we can kind of send this to various places, like to the cutoff and oscillator 2 frequency, oscillator 1 wave. I'm going to send this to the sub wave. So like I said, we've got our sub oscillator here. We can change the wave shape of that. I'm going to have that all the way over this side. Put this onto let's say square wave like that, and start bringing in some interesting kind of bass sounds. Bring it to just the sub oscillator. You can hear how that now is. Creating some cool little rhythmic patterns that are interacting nicely with the arpeggiation.
free or synth
Yeah.
as well with the LFO,
Let's bring these other oscillators back in a bit. And I might bring this down, get it a bit meatier. And now, so we've got the second LFO here, and that is kind of routed but as standard to the mod wheel here, so we can use the mod wheel to bring that in and out. I'm going to have that turn it off from the pitch, route it to cut off like that, slow it down a bit. Get some more interesting rhythmic things going in. And now I'm going to bring in my favourite thing here, is these looping envelopes. So we've got the a few options here for these envelopes here. Like I said, we've got two envelopes, the amp envelope and the filter envelope, which we've just been using as kind of standard ADSR things at the moment. We can do things like, we've got multi-trigger here, so what that does is it changes the behaviour from like old mini Moog style, where kind of the envelopes don't re-trigger if you kind of play notes together, to kind of changing it so it does trigger with each new note, which doesn't really make any difference here with our little arpeggio, but anyway. But also you can loop these envelopes, and I love playing around with this, which basically means you can kind of turn the envelopes into like little kind of shapeable LFOs almost. So let's play with this filter envelope here. Bring in a bit of noise maybe. You get this nice feedback control on the filter as well, which can kind of bring in a bit of grittiness.
That's just taking the actual whole album.
Yeah, just routing it back through classic kind of Model D style bit of grittiness. You can have Oscillator 2 routes to cut off as well from the... If I take that bass resonance out, you can hear how that's making a big difference. Let's stop that now. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying, the more I kind of play around with this, the more fun you kind of realise you can have in creating nice sounds. Now, if we go through the presets, what we'll do is we'll stick a load of demos in the end there, because obviously that was just me messing around for now. We'll stick some proper demos in going through some of these presets, but it's got some really nice, you know, classic basses, classic leads, nice monosynth sounds, the kind of things you expect from a nice Moog synth, the exact kind of things you want to hear.
Yeah.
But there's some other nice touches as well. So this, there's more modulation options than what I touched on there. So what I was using there to obviously modulate a few things to show you how you can get things moving were these kind of pre-patched and pre-routed things. But as you can see, we've got like LFO1 assign, the filter envelope assign. So you can hold these down for kind of 2 seconds. and then I could say route that to the wave shape of Oscillator 1, and you've got this nice the way
nice
these light
visual.
up to show you the depth of the modulation, which is a nice little touch as well. You could do the same with that envelope. So there's more modulation tools there. What is a nice little touch is you've got CV and gates in and out along the back here, which is nice, along with kind of expression and sustain pedals. External inputs, kind of headphone and standard audio outputs, as well as, you know, USB and MIDI. So there's a lot of nice connectivity there. Yeah. And then finally, obviously I was playing around with the arpeggiator there, but you've got this nice sequencer here, which is kind of inheriting some of the stuff that we've seen on Muse last year. Okay. I'm not going to program something here now, but like it's really easy to do. You just kind of flick through to sequence and then just start inputting notes. Let's not do it with that because it's sounding weird. But yeah, you can kind of start inputting notes, kind of holds, ties, rests. But you've also got these kind of note probability and note pool things and kind of gate probability and things, which mean you can assign, you know, a certain amount of randomization to the sequences, which is a lot of fun and really nice to play around with. And I often find with like, I'm of the opinion a lot of the time that with kind of built-in sequences and synths, I often don't really touch them that much because, you know, you plug it into a DAW or something and you kind of got more interesting tools.
Yes.
But actually this is a sequence where with those randomization things, with the fact you can kind of, you know, drop notes in and out, playing around with variations and things like that, there's a lot going for it and for why you would want to build self-contained patches. You can also use the sequencer to record automation of like all of these front panel, anything with a kind of knob that you can grab on it. Meaning that there's you can kind of get some really interesting little sequences built straight within the box. And so for all of that reason, actually, the more time I spend with Messenger, the more fun I'm having with it. And that's a good sign. I do. I actually really rate it.
Yeah, good.
So the one sticking point I would say
we're going to talk about
is with this is the price. And this isn't to say that I think Messenger is necessarily unreasonably priced.
Sure.
So it's got a price point. It's available now. It's kind of in shops for £699. I think similar amount in dollars and euros, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which on its own, I don't think is an unreasonable price because it's a good bit of kit. But
when comparing it to
it does
leaders.
There's a lot of over the last decade or so, we've had a lot of analog monosynths arrive from kind of really cheap and cheerful things at the low end, you know, Korg, Monologue and things like that. Through to, you know, you've got obviously upper end things from the likes of Sequential. Moog themselves have got their like Grandmother, which is the semi-modular patchable one, which is excellent. But the monosynth market is competitive. And the thing that comes closest to mind when I was playing with Messenger is the Base Station 2.
Yes.
And so the Base Station 2, is obviously a few years old now. It's about a decade old, I think.
And some
longer than that.
Yeah.
God, that's making me feel old.
I think it's about closer to 13 years, maybe.
I don't know.
12, 13 years.
I'm not going to Google it. It's just going to make me feel old.
No, yeah. Let's
not talk about that. It's been around for quite a while, but there is quite a lot of similarities, I think, in the sound. In the way this kind of sound engines these are set up, in the way that, you know, they're both two oscillator monosynths. They've both got here you've got kind of distortion and ring mod and things. Here you've got the modulation tools here, so you can bring that kind of slightly audio rate modulation edginess into them. You've got the kind of two filter modes there, a couple of filter modes here, which kind of shape the kind of sonic qualities. And I think we were playing around with these a little bit together off camera. And I would say they don't sound identical.
No, they have got their own character.
They've got their own character. There's definitely, particularly if we go, let's just go to the patches on here. If we go to this first patch, that kind of punchy modes.
Whereas this one felt a bit more beefy.
Yeah, I would say that's a kind of meatier sounding synth.
And obviously with the distortion.
This is kind of, I would say, a bit snappy and a bit punchier, but you can get both in similar ballpark. The reason that I'm comparing the two of them is because if you're looking at buying one right now, this is going for $699 and you can pick these up for $350.
Get two of these for one of them.
And so my big sticking point with Messenger is, I really like Messenger. I would really like one, but if I was walking into a shop right now with my own money, do I think it's worth twice as much as one of those? And that is a question that I don't necessarily have an answer to.
No, it's one of the things where it's a brand new product and its launch price slightly overinflated for what the rest of the market is, and then obviously it will settle down a bit.
I think it will settle down. It'll come down a bit. It's also
Yeah.
worth noting, obviously, because this has been around for years. It's had some really cool things added through firmware updates,
course,
like you've got a kind of microtonal stuff in their kind of Aphex Twin branded update. They brought out things like that. You've got Aftertouch on the keyboard, which is nice. I'm sure we'll probably get some extra things added in firmware in this. And as you say, this is a launch price. It'll probably settle down a bit.
Yeah, fewer keys. This is all plastic. That is a very rugged,
despite what it looks like on first glance, it is kind of robust and solid. Taken completely on its own, if you want a Moog monosynth sound without going kind of semi-modular, this is definitely the best way to get it. And it tick that box, absolutely ticks that box. I think sonically, it nails those basses and those leads. You can do the sort of mini Moog Model D type stuff, particularly with this feedback control, but it can also do some nice kind of wave folding almost East Coasty sounds. And so you won't be disappointed with it taking it in isolation. No. In the wider scheme things of what is the best monosynth and where's the best way to spend your money, maybe wait for the price of this to settle down a little bit and consider some other things like the Base Station 2 and other things that are out there that have been out for a few years and offer similar qualities and sounds for a lot less. But
if you can hang on, wait until maybe the sales and Black Friday, etc. Yeah.
So
who knows?
Messenger, we like it though.
We do
like it,
and I think we owe you some more sound demos as promised.
Yeah, we'll get someone who can actually play keyboards to do them.
Adam, that's your job.
Yeah.
He's shaking his head. No, he can't. Someone else will. Thanks, Si. I think, in a nutshell, it's a force for good.
Yeah, we like it.
It's good. Tell us what you think about Messenger in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that business. We'll have links in the description for Muse and all the other reviews and stuff we're talking about. And we'll see you soon for some more gear demos. So cheers.